So besides making February weather predictions, you want me to predict the March Madness brackets as well?
Hi everyone, this is Will O'Toole welcoming you to another edition of Park Ridge Sports History. And of course, as I promised you last week, I will continue with just an analysis of our great baseball broadcasters for the New York Yankees and New York Mets over their history. But I did want to tie in a little bit about the upcoming events in March and April, and particularly with the NCAA basketball for both the men's and women, focusing really on the men's with the 60-18 bracket. And of course, that is coming up within the next couple of weeks, where all things crazy happen in March. And with that is the NCAA program of the basketball tournaments. Right now, and I am being partisan to Seton University, I really don't think they have a shot. It just kept falling apart for them with their recent losing streak. Georgetown, Butler, St. John's, as well as UConn. I think if any Pirate fan was really hoping for hope, you would have taken 3 or 4 or expecting to win 3 or 4 there. And now they are definitely on the outside looking in. They do have enough talent to go on a run to win the Big East tournament, because that's probably their only way of getting into the tournament. And then that would be as probably maybe as high as a 10th seed. For the last couple of weeks, I know that there was a couple of bracketologists who were putting them at the last 4 in, the last 4 out, but definitely no higher this year than at this point in the year than as a 10 seed. And of course, that would take a miracle upon miracles, probably winning the Big East tournament, which is going to be quite an undertaking, because they are going to have to win 3 games basically in 3 nights, and playing opponents that just obviously, just like in any basketball tournament, just become just stronger as the tournament goes deeper and deeper. They do have the talent, though. They're just out of sorts right now. They're just missing pieces. They're not rebounding offensively. They're not hitting the threes. They are giving up a ton of threes at crucial times. And then if anyone has seen the last 4 or 5 games, they go in these deep depressions of not scoring at all. Last night was probably the quintessential loss of the year for them in this respect. They go up 18-0 and then lose the game by 11. And there was a point in that game shortly after halftime, they couldn't put the ball in the bucket. They do make some late charges, but it has not been enough. And really, I think what you're going to point to, probably if they don't get into the tournament, many Pirate fans are going to point to that 16-point lead against Creighton at home, Prudential Center, which they surrendered to a slew of threes to the Creighton Blue Jays. I mean, they were just hitting anything on end, and this was probably the middle of February. And from that point on, things have just gone awry. They have won some games in between that, but they have not looked really the same. So I'm hoping maybe the Pirates can get back on board and, really go on a nice winning streak, because at this point, winning that Big East tournament would be a tremendous lift, not just for the program, but really for the conference, because it would probably guarantee 4, maybe even 5 teams. But I'm not going to project. And the reason why I'm not going to project is because I'm simply wrong about everything on those things. And I probably have too much of a partisan heart. But it should be exciting. What I do like about the March Madness, it does get you through these days of March where kind of Mother Nature teases you with that 60-degree weather, and you say, oh, boy, spring is here. Summer is just around the corner, and then brutalizes you with those 36-degree days, and it just hovers between freezing 32 and about 38, but it's the wind that just kills you in the Northeast here, and it just makes things very uncomfortable. I think most people can live in 38-degree weather if the sun is shining. There's just a soft breeze. People don't mind that so much, but it was when that brutal, it's that bone-chilling arthritic-inducing wind that just pierces your body. And it's like, wow, I just can't wait to get to May. And the tournament games, I think what makes them particularly so much fun is many of them, the first two opening rounds are played during the day. Some people kind of play hooky. They kind of go and peek at the games during their lunch hour. It just makes for a lot of fun. It's everything Americana in a lot of ways, because adults on Wall Street become just like the knothole gangs of the early 20s trying to peek in to the baseball game through the holes in the fences. It's no different. Instead of going to the back of a fence in left field or center field, they go to the nearest watering hole and watch the games on TV and have a couple of beers. All is right as with the world when it's just a nice kind of experience with the March Madness. And of course, March Madness has grown. When I was a kid, of course, ancient centuries ago, that's how it feels. The tournament was held for 25 teams, and that's you would have so many first round buys, and actually to get to the tournament so many times. And this is not a knock against UCLA, but they always were stationed in the West because their program was so good. They basically have a number of buy rounds, and I think it would just take them 2 games to get maybe to the Final Four. And then, of course, they would dominate the Final Four, winning from 1965 to 75, 10 of 12 times under John Wooden. And, of course, he had 2 great centers during that time, Bill Walton and Lou Alcindor, who becomes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And they just dominated basketball. I'd like to say that I did see two big games, and that was UCLA with Bill Walton losing to the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, and the guys from South Bend ending their 88-game winning streak, and that was January of 74. People forget this, though, that the Irish went out to L.A., I think within the following week or 2 weeks, and got destroyed. And they also went down, I believe, in the second round of the tournament that year against UCLA. And they had some really good talent, especially from New Jersey. Gary Brokaw, I believe he was from Elizabeth. I know John Shoemate was from Elizabeth. They had quite a few players from the Northeast. And, of course, probably my favorite player, one of my favorite players, Austin Carr, was from Washington, D.C. And definitely my all-time favorite Irish player was Adrian Dantly in those early Digger Phelps teams. I loved how he played. As a kid, and I know now as a referee, you have to keep the shirts in and all the rest of it. Well, Dantly was this undersized, football-playing, linebacker, fullback-looking power forward when they didn't use the term power forward. And I just remember he would just be underneath the basket, grabbing every rebound and just going up with, it seemed to me, 5 bodies from the other team just trying to pull down his shoulders. And he was just so strong and would be able to put so many putbacks in. Those are things that you remember as a kid, but he definitely becomes one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player all time for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Adrian Dantly. He was from D.C. So Digger really dug the Northeast for many, many players. And, of course, later teams would have Kelly Tripucka and David Rivers from St. Anthony. So Digger really was able to get some big blue chip nugget Garden Staters to play for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Now, I would, and I'm just going to segue because I do like doing the baseball and the March Madness. It is exciting. It's quite a bit of fun. And I will get into that probably next week when I might even just take a look at the brackets and I'll give you, quote unquote, my expertise. But that goes about as far as, I don't know, the next phone call that you get, because it's not going to be of any lasting value, because every time it seems I hop on a team, well, they do a hop away from me. So it doesn't really do all that well for listening to me. Maybe, though, I'll be so wrong. I'll be right. And you can go the opposite way as you make your final four picks. I wanted to get into quite a few players here today. I'm going to save a few. I did promise. Howard sent me a great, and this is a shout out again to Howard Fredericks, who helps produce the show. He really does. And listen, this is bare bones. I'm learning how to do this. I want to do more. Once some things get out of the way, I would love to improve, let's say, I don't know, the technical or the production, etc. I'd love to do a show where you're watching me actually do the cartoon that I feature every week, or two cartoons that I feature every week, because there is a process that goes with it. I'm not saying it definitely isn't physics. It's definitely not rocket science, but there is quite a bit of torture in terms of, all right, what am I going to do my subject on? How am I going to do it? How do I draw it? How do I become more concise with the wording? And it's true. Cartooning is one of those few disciplines where it's got to be few lines of art and few lines of words to complete a full idea. And it's difficult. And I'm not saying it's anything on the scale of rocket science, but it's very challenging. It's fun. And that's why I do it. It's fun. And it really does. Cartooning, it really does make you stay current. It makes you delve into maybe subject matter that was new or foreign to you, or things that you just never knew. And it does offer you a chance to use all those elements of literature that your teachers used to really harp on: allusion, alliteration, poetry, rhyme, etc., metaphors, symbols, etc. So it is quite a challenge that way. I hope most of the time what any artist or any cartoonist would hope for is that within that 3 seconds, you really embrace the cartoon, you understand where the author is coming from, and that you get it. Because if you have to sit there and linger over it, I failed at my job as a cartoonist. Because it should be, you go in, you get the idea, and you move out. And hopefully, the idea that the cartoonist tries to communicate really resonates with the viewer. You're not always going, and this is what you're always hoping, you're not always going to maybe agree with the cartoonist. Many times you might disagree. And if I can get that kind of balance between an audience, I've been successful. If I don't, well, I got to just mark it and move on as I do a little alliteration there as well. However, Howard and the grandiose promo I've been doing, Howard asked if I would do one day, and I will. I'm going to give you, but I really want to do a little bit more research on this, and I simply didn't have enough time. But it's not just the great Bob Gibson I have up here. This is what I'd really like to get into with the baseball idea that Howard has, and that is the baseball cap, which is unique to sports. You know, when you think about it, basketball still doesn't have headgear. Although you could consider maybe headbands and all the rest of it. That's a 70s thing that's really gone out. Football didn't start with a helmet. And indeed, it was leather helmets at first, and then they go to the plastic and it seems like heavy armor today. But this is what has always aggravated me. This is just a little thing with the NFL. You know, they do the throwback jerseys, and they immediately take off the logos off the helmets because, you know, with the throwback jerseys, the helmets didn't have logos. Well, I got to be honest with you. As a kid, I'm being prejudiced, and even today, as a watcher of the game, I really like seeing the logos on the helmets. Now, the two different helmets, the Browns with no logos on either side, and the Steelers, which is kind of cool. They only have the steel patch emblem on the one side. For the most part, the teams all have either a symbol or lettering. And unfortunately, just another side to this. I don't like what the college has done, and that is just simply everyone just has the first letter of their school on their helmet, like Rutgers. If you've ever seen University of Akron, you know where I'm going with, especially when they have a great logo. Like the University of Akron, they have a kangaroo as their logo. Just put the kangaroo on the side. Have some fun. You could put Akron underneath it. But I love the helmets with the logos. However, with baseball, I know this sounds kind of peculiar, but then why wouldn't it be? There are certain teams that I do like an emblem up here. And then there are just certain teams, and I guess it's the tradition and the history of the franchise where I love actually the lettering. One of them, of course, is the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I know I'm hoping I get quite a disagreement here, and I've had debates with my brother about which uniform I think is the best in all of baseball. He's not a Yankee fan. He's a Red fan, and I root for his team, the Reds. I'm a Red fan as well. But he feels that it's the Yankees who have the best uniform, and we'll get into that. I kind of am prejudiced to the St. Louis Cardinal one. I just love the St. Louis, the ST and L. And believe me, as a cartoonist, and even if you're doing this as calligraphy, that's very difficult to draw and be accurate with the STL. Kind of St. John's does the same thing with their logo. They kind of hide the T within. Actually, they hide the SJ. They hide the T within the J for theirs. But St. Louis has the S, the L, and then they have the T. It really looks cool. From a distance, it doesn't look like lettering. It almost looks like Chinese calligraphy in a way, or even Japanese calligraphy. But but when you focus on it, you can see it does say the STL St. Louis. I just love the calligraphy of it. It's so classy. And then I am being prejudiced. I just love that cardinal. Now, look, this is why I want to do it. I would love to take, as we go through these shows, and show you some of the evolution of some of these ball clubs and their uniforms, because the Cardinals have had several different types of uniforms. They've had several different types of Redbirds on their uniform. I do love this one. It's probably my favorite, even though they have, quote unquote, better Cardinal drawings. I like this one because it really embraces everything baseball, everything about a logo. And that is, they have the mascots, the Cardinals. They have the sport going across the baseball bat. And it's kind of cool. It's the perch for the two Cardinals. And it's that real robust red, vibrant red. And then look at the script for the Cardinals. It's unique. It is plain to see. They don't do St. Louis. So you basically have St. Louis, Cardinals, logo, and sport all in one. Conversely, and I'm going to come back to the Yankees. Trust me, I will. It is a difficult, I tell you, and this is probably me just being sometimes a bad calligraphy writer and stuff. And of course, what don't I have? I don't have, wait a minute, no. I don't have the Yankee logo in front of me, which is why I'm going to do it on another episode. And the reason being is because that New York interlocking, and I'm pretty sure all of the fans living in the Bergen County area know the interlocking NY, as Michael K would say, the interlocking. Didn't realize this, and this is probably why I have it. There are it's a calligraphy unto itself. It was actually designed by a police officer or a police commissioner named Louis Tiffany, who was designing a medal for a policeman shot on duty. And the owner of the old Yankee franchise, the one that moved from Baltimore, became the Highlanders first, and then, of course, the Yankees. He embraced the NY and decided, since he was also a former policeman, I think he was a deputy or chief of police. His name is Bill Devery. As I said to everybody, if you're following this, wow, this guy goes off into tangents. We're sitting together, we're having a beer and a burger, and just all these things come at you at once when you're talking sports and all of your memories just coming in. But Bill Devery was the New York owner of the Yankees. He really embraced that NY. It is different. There are no other, I don't believe this. There are no other letters in the alphabet, just this NY as a calligraphy. Now, that would be interesting for someone to come up with, we would call it, instead of old times, probably Yankee font for that NY. And I'll show you the picture, but I think everyone knows the NY, and that's been with the Yankees for over 120, well, almost 120 years. There were a couple of times when I was reading this that they did have pinstripes, got rid of the pinstripes. They had the NY, took the NY off their hats. But for the most part, probably starting about 1906. So you're talking about 115 years, 116 seasons. The Yankees have had that NY. One thing that the Yankees have never had, at least on their home uniforms, are the names on the back. And the belief, and Notre Dame does the same thing, and so does Army football. But the belief is this: why do I need a guy's name when the number should do? And that was the belief of the Yankees. And I know I'm being maybe an old stodgy fan, but I wish they would eliminate the name on the back. It's very easy to put Ed Ott on the back of a uniform. Try putting Klazuski or Mankowski. All right. Or one of my favorite names was Doug Mankowitz, who played for the Tigers way back when. And they have more letters than the United States Post Office, and you're trying to put them on their name. And then the M starts under one armpit and the Z ends under the other armpit, and you never see them. So you think the guy should have just abridged his name so it would fit on the back of his shirt. So pet peeves, I guess. The fun of sports. These are the crazy things that you can argue and debate in sports. But I would like to focus on just on the Yankee announcers. I promise I was not able to talk about as many as I thought. And I think there are 3 or 4 that we can really reference today that I really respect, not just as broadcasters, but as players. One of which I really, really, truly believe should be in the Hall of Fame. And I'll probably save him until last because listen, I'll let you know who it is. It's Jim Cott. I really think, first of all, he should be in, as I said, with many of the others, just for what he's done for baseball. But the other thing about Cott, and you know what, maybe I should start with Cott. He has 283 wins lifetime. He was 283 and 237, 3.45 ERA. And here's the interesting thing about Cott. Do you realize that he actually won for the White Sox 53 games in 74, 75, and 76 at the ages of 35, 36, and 7. He actually had more 20-game winning seasons, too, with the White Sox than with the Twins, the team that you always consider when you identify Cott. I always think of Cott being a Washington Center, he was, but also a Minnesota Twin. That his golden year was 66. He won 25 games. He did lead 2 consecutive years in games started, 42 and 41 games in consecutive seasons. And he had 19 complete games in 1966. You're going to see Hall of Fame pitchers over the next 10, 15 years that won't have 19 complete games in their career, yet they're Hall of Fame pitchers. It's just an unbelievable thing how pitching has turned into such a science where every pitch, and we can talk about that later too, where the pitch count has really pervaded the game to the point where I actually think in many ways it might be hurting the pitcher, not just physically, but psychologically. And I think when you have the pitch count, okay, I get it. It's important. You've invested quite a bit of money in these arms. You want them insured. But I actually think it probably has the opposite. So if you're going in and you're a relief pitcher and you're going to be limited to 30 pitches, you're just going to try to blow it out every time. Throw everything by that particular hitter or hitters that you're facing. And then what happens? you come to pitch 27, 28, and that batter knows, because everybody knows the pitch count for everybody. He knows if I can just last these two, maybe foul off a couple of pitches, yeah, maybe I'll make an out. But he's going to be removed because that is his limit on pitch count. Or maybe I can even work out a walk with those last two pitches. And believe me, there are players who are good enough to be able to do that. And there are managers so fearful of going beyond, let's say, the level or the limit that pitcher on the mound for that particular pitcher, that they will not go to pitch 31. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, with Cott, he led the league also in innings pitched. He threw 304.1 innings that year. And when I was doing a study on this, do you realize at the age of 36, he didn't lead the league, but at the age of 36, as opposed to age 27, and if you've followed this show, you'll know this, that Bill James, who really is, and I'm going to say, I shouldn't say the father of all stats, but he definitely is the father of all analytics. He did a study and found that most players, they peak or they usually have their best season at age 27. Well, that really reigns true for Cott. He has a 2.75 ERA, leads the league in complete games started with 41, complete games 19, pitches 304.2 innings to lead the league, does give up 271 hits. But my whole point is, that's age 27, he makes the All-Star team. Well, he does have some arm problems later on and basically signs on with the White Sox. And this is what he does after winning 21 games for the White Sox in 74. He pitched 277 innings for the White Sox in 74 at the age of 35. At the age of 36 for the White Sox, he wins 20 games, 3.11 ERA, and he threw 303.2 innings pitched that year. And he doesn't lead the league. He actually finished second or third to Catfish Hunter, who I think threw 320 some odd innings for the Yankees. Incredible amount of innings pitched. But he does that at the age of 36. Now, he gets traded to the Phillies. Unfortunately for him, he does play on a division winner. He wins 12 games, 3.48 ERA, still throws 227 innings. At age 38, he's kind of on the decline. By the way, that 1975, that's his last basically winning double-digit season. He does win 12, of course, in 76, but it finishes under 500. He goes 8-5 in 78 with the Phillies. But actually with the Phillies, for those pennant-winning teams, I shouldn't say pennant, division-winning teams, he actually won 26 games, lost 30, but didn't do a bad job considering this. At age 39, he threw 140 innings. At age 38, 160. He actually gave the Phillies 528.1 innings pitching over 3 years. Now, Bill James, I know I like to harp on him, but he actually did a study in a baseball book, let's say the greatest pitchers and hitters of all time, etc. And it was this, that Cott goes 18 wins, 10 wins, 17 wins, 18, 25, 16, 14, 14, 14. He actually said this, it's too bad I couldn't take 5 of those wins from his 20-game season and add them to 64 and 65, because then he'd have a run of 3 20-win seasons there for the Twins. And now you would be talking about a guy who really would be getting closer and closer to that Hall of Fame status, because he'd have 5 20-win seasons. And and James's point was, just by playing around with a player's personal season, you can really change their look and change their status in terms of Hall of Fame availability. I was really amazed at this, though, with his 283 wins and the fact that he threw 4,500 innings and picked up another 17 saves and had 31 shutouts all time, that Cott only had a 50.5 WAR. And again, this is what's driving me crazy about the WAR. I brought up last week about Ernie Banks having a negative WAR, even though he had what I would consider a very productive season with 23 homers and 100 RBIs in 1969. And then I am going to have to investigate this. This is just an aside with Baseball Reference. I was looking at Ernie Banks, and I noticed this, that the two pitchers, let's say, that received a number of MVP votes that year, I think it was Seaver, and I'm just going to throw Carlton out there. Well, when I looked further, they had as their MVP, it showed that they had a high WAR, but then they had a differing WAR when it came up to the Cy Young. And then I was looking at their hitting stats, and that didn't make sense. So I have to actually check in with Baseball Reference and just find out why, and maybe this is the case with Ernie Banks, why there was like, and it's like 0.2, 0.3. Not, it's not like he had 15 as a WAR and then went down to 5. I'm talking about, 8.3, then it was like 7.8. So I just want to check with Baseball Reference why there is a difference between the MVP and also with the Cy Young. Now, maybe the WAR, and of course I'm always learning about the WAR, maybe it kind of shifts gears a little bit when you're talking about the MVP as opposed to Cy Young, because Cy Young definitely deals with just pitchers, and of course the MVP includes everyone on the roster: pitchers, hitters, catchers, relief pitchers, etc. So that was just one of the interesting finds I found. So there's Jim Cott. Do I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame? He's got 283 wins. He resurrected his career with the White Sox after hurting himself. He was a great Gold Glove. In fact, I would love to ask baseball historians this: who was the better fielder? And I'm going to say contemporaries. Was it Cott or Maddox? Because they won numerous Gold Gloves. All right, next couple of guys. Another fan favorite, and I know the Met fans are going to think, oh, you're just a Yankee fan. I am not a Yankee fan, and it is funny. This is how I am. If the Yankees are losing, I tend to leave them on. If they're winning, I turn them off. If the Mets are losing, I turn them off. If they're winning, I kind of keep them on. Ken Singleton, I was disappointed with this. 41.8 WAR. Now, look, wasn't a great defensive player. He was definitely a guy built for the designated hitter, and he does luck out because he also lucks out this way. I think he had a pretty fabulous career. And how do I say this? He would probably be considered today a player of limited abilities who would be a big-time player today because he was able to hit the home runs with the Orioles to the tune of about 18 to 20, 25. And more importantly, especially for a guy like Earl Weaver and any sabermetric guys today, he had the ability to draw walks to the tune of this. Ready? And this is incredible. I didn't look this up, who led the league in walks in 1973. But his second full year in Montreal, I shouldn't say that, really his first full year, because he is traded to Montreal in 19, well, no, I will say this. His 1972, why I say 73 is his first full year, because I had the baseball strike in 72. So I'll get away with it right there. But his second year with Montreal, 162 games played, led the league. He was 23, 103, 302. Ready for his on-base percentage? It also led the league, 425. Singleton had 123 walks. Guys, that's drawing almost a walk a game. In addition to getting 169 hits, Singleton had 100 runs scored for a team that finished third or fourth. 73, what happened with the Expos, they were pretty exciting because they get Singleton in the Staub deal. They're starting to come up with Rogers and a plethora of really good young early players. They're 2 years away from Carter, but they are building a farm system, and they get some production out of their older players. They get, Ken Singleton on in a hitting thing. In fact, Singleton finishes 9th in the MVP, but he drew 123 walks. Ready for this? He goes, this is just walks. 123, the following year, 93, then 118, 79, 107, 98, 109, 92. His bad year, 61. Then he goes up to 86 and 99 walks at the age of 36. And he had 18 homers, 84 RBIs with the Baltimore Orioles. I was glad. I didn't realize this. He does help the Orioles win the World Series in 83. For some reason, I thought maybe he was off that team. But he goes 18, 84, 99 walks in 151 games. He ends his career with a 388 on-base percentage. But it was over 400 in 5 different years, including his high 1978. And I can tell you this, I bet you the on-base percentage leader in 1977 was Rod Carew because he hit 388. Singleton had a 438 on-base percentage in 77. He walked 107 times. He had 99 RBIs. He had 90 runs scored. I got to be honest with you. This guy, and I know there are many good reasons why he's not. But when you think about it, if Rice is in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not saying Rice is probably the more complete offensive player, all right? Singleton only has 246. Rice has over 370 home runs lifetime. Rice does win an MVP. Singleton actually should have won the MVP in 1979. There's no question in my mind to this day that he had far superior numbers than Don Baylor, a former Oriole. Nothing against Baylor, maybe a prejudice towards me with Singleton. You know, you got to remember this too. Singleton was a big time. He probably had more power from the left side of the plate, but he was a switch hitter. And that year in 79, ready for his numbers, 35, 111. He hit 295, 405 on base percentage. And for Weaver's Birds, he drew 109 walks. Guys, this guy was a walk machine. His baseball average over 162 games, 98 walks. Now, we can poo-poo walks all you want. I don't think guys are poo-pooing that today. This guy would be a Oakland A player that they would go after. Now, he was slow of foot. In fact, he had 21 lifetime steals and he had 36 times that he was caught. He was not the best outfielder. Did not have a great arm. And that's why I say he's really just a really good team player. Probably hurts him in terms of the Hall of Fame. But I think of guys like Orlando Cepeda, probably a better hitter. You know, and I think of other guys, you know, that maybe weren't as good like Willie Starr, but Willie has 500 home runs. I get all that. I just wish they would take a look. And if I enjoy listening to Singleton broadcast games, he is one of those guys that kind of anticipates what's going to happen instead of report on what did happen. And I like that much better. All right. A guy like him, Keith Hernandez, this blew my mind, was that his WAR is 10 points higher than Singleton. He is the present color man for the Mets. He finishes with 162 homers, a 296 batting average. He won numerous gold gloves. In fact, he won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 gold gloves. Same kind of speed, I guess. Well, I shouldn't say that. He had 98 stolen bases in his career. A better all-around player than Singleton. That being said, I kind of always liked Singleton. I always did. He didn't drive in as many home runs. He does draw a ton of walks. He averaged over 162 games, 83 walks. He does draw 100 walks in 1982 with the Cardinals. He had some monster years with the Cardinals. You know, he finished in a tie for MVP with Stargell in 79. That year, 48 doubles, 11 triples, 11 homers, 105 RBIs, 344 batting average to lead the league, 417 on-base percentage, and he led the league in runs with 116. He does finish MVP once. He does finish in the top. He actually finished second for the Mets in the MVP voting in 1984, losing to Ryne Sandberg, I do believe. And he was in the top 10 4 times. So I guess you can say that better all-around player than Ken Singleton. Probably the same type of announcer too, although he is interesting to listen to. I just always enjoyed Singleton more. And then the last guy I want to focus on in his last minute and a half. Here's Paul O'Neill. I know many Yankee fans love him. 38.8 WAR. He was a good player who couldn't hit lefties with the Cincinnati Reds. That was the book on him. So he goes to the Yankees and becomes maybe not a core 4 player, but he's definitely a guy you win championships with. Even the Reds recognize that, because in 90, he has a great year with the Reds, 16-78, had a 339 on-base percentage and a 270 ERA, draws 53 walks. Again, with the Yankees, here's what I'm saying. His first couple of years, 96, actually his second year, drew 100 walks with the Yankees and hit 300 with the Yankees 5 times. And does, with the Yankees, finish in the top 20 MVP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Surprising that his WAR is only 38.8. He was one of those guys, though, that you always wanted to go to war with. This is Will O'Toole for Park Ridge Sports. Thanking you again for joining me, and I will see you next week with another sports story. Thank you.